Hello, everyone. All right, let's talk about gate 23 or gene key 23. So, this gene key, this gate is this is my unconscious earth. And so I feel this one quite deeply. And I sometimes it feels a little elusive to me, probably because it's so close. If you've ever experienced that, right? It's easier to see things that you are not yourself embodying. So gate 23 is in the throat and it connects to the ajna via gate 43. And it's individual circuitry, and it's when it's connected to gate 43, it's called the channel of structuring or innovative thinking. And it's the ability to use your knowing to change the way people think about things. In quantum human design language, gate 23 is known as the gate of transmission. In traditional human design language, it is known as the gate of assimilation. And the I Ching calls this hexagram the splitting apart, or when things fall apart. So the transit through 23 is highlighting that change and transformation always happen. They are just a part of being alive on this planet in this lifetime. Change and transformation occur. I mean, they probably on all dimensional levels, whether you live on this planet or another star system, there's always change and transformation. I think it's just a part of existence, except that perhaps the change and transformation look different elsewhere. And it's also highlighting the ability to know what needs to happen next when change is calling, and to know and to tap into right timing as to when to share what you know. On the shadow side, we see this play out as the need to be right, or the pressure, right? This is a projected channel, and it's connecting the ajna to the throat. So it's this pressure to share what you know, and bitterness or resentment when people aren't ready to hear what you have to share, or they don't care what you have to say. I've experienced a lot of this in my life, pressure to get people to pay attention to what I'm seeing. It happened a lot in jobs. And the need to be right, that would play out quite a bit on the shadow in relationship, either family growing up or in intimate relationships. And then the experience of bitterness. Oh my goodness, am I familiar with that? Luckily not since I really took on this journey through my deconditioning journey and to understand my energy. Bitterness is not something I experience nearly as much as I used to. On the integrated expression of gate 23, we find the ability to translate insights to your right people in the right timing, to transform the way they think. The way that I see it or experience it is it's often about seed dropping. So planting seeds in people's minds that kind of take off rather quickly. And it's on the integrated side of the gate 23, it's also the ability to trust your knowingness, that your knowingness, just this ability to know something, is actually an expression of source working through you. It's an expression of your connection to source. This has really played out for me through doing these videos. So my teacher, Karen Curry Parker, she said to me the other day in group, I said to her, what gives me the right to talk about this stuff? And something happened for me. It's like I doubt sometimes the stuff that comes through when I talk about the gene keys and the gates, and as I've begun sharing some more of the channeled messages that come through, it's not a it is very much inside of me, but I only know what is going to come out kind of when I have an intention or someone asks me a question. So when I discovered human design, but then it was kind of like astrology never made sense to me. I mean, it made sense on a very basic level, but it didn't make a lot of sense. I couldn't integrate it very well. When I was introduced to human design, it was just like my whole world expanded. And then shortly after I was initiated into human design, I discovered Richard Rudd and the Gene Keys. And discovering the Gene Keys woke something up in me to begin tapping into this knowingness, that sometimes I just know something and I don't know why I know it. And sometimes words just come out of my mouth when I'm sharing something with my clients, with my friends, with you people who watch these videos, for which I'm super grateful. This knowingness just comes out and I can't plan it. I have a loose kind of idea of what it is. But what I said to Karen, I was like, what gives me the right to talk about this stuff? And because I haven't done I haven't studied in a formal way. I study on my own. I read what lights me up, and then I just talk about things. And she reminded me of my projectorness, as well as this 4323 channel that is my conscious sun and earth. And it helped me really realize that this knowingness, this information that comes through that I don't even really know what I'm saying a lot of the time, is my connection to source. It's source working through me. And that's personally been something that I've questioned, because I lived at the shadow for so long, right? And I'm very grateful to now understand it from a different perspective and have a new knowing of what this means. So the Richard Rudd calls this Gene Key 23 the alchemy of simplicity. And on the shadow side, we call this complexity. And this plays out in the shadow of humanity a lot. And we make things complicated. And it's simply an aspect of the human trying to control their situation. And I notice this for myself when I'm trying to think through a dilemma, like something isn't making sense, either especially around what I'm doing in my business, and I'm sitting there banging my head against the wall and I'm very confused and everything feels complicated. And what happens is, as soon as I surrender into the not knowing, I go, I don't know what to do next. I don't know. I'm an open vessel. I don't know what to do next. I'm just going to allow it. I receive insights. Sometimes it is immediately, sometimes it's in the shower, sometimes I wake up from a dream and I have these insights. And it's because I was in this controlling state of trying to do it the right way, or trying to do something how I was told to do it, instead of just allowing myself to do this. As well, on the shadow side, we get that pressure, this overwhelming urge to express the self. But there is, in that complexity, we can't hear ourselves or know ourselves, and we can't communicate clearly. And there's a fear in the shadow of being excluded, or of not being tolerated for what you want to share and share with people. And this has played out for me in my life as well, right? Before I embarked on my self-discovery journey, it happened mostly in 2012 during my Ashtanga, when I found Ashtanga yoga and began chanting and pranayama practice. I didn't know who I was. I was a big ball of anxiety. I was who I thought people wanted me to be. That's who I was. I have a wide open G center as well, so I'm very good at fitting in different places, but I'd lost myself and my throat was blocked. I didn't know how to share what was going on for myself. And underneath all of that, I was so scared of not belonging and scared of not being accepted. And this shadow is very it's very uncomfortable in that place. And when we're in that place, then we're looking outside of ourselves again for the approval from others. And this can show up, remember this is a throat gate, right? Either in holding back, not speaking, not sharing, or not shutting up, speaking out of the right time and pushing to be heard. And I have lived out both of these, shutting right down or pushing to be heard, right? And neither of those works. It ends up kind of calling in what we don't want, the intolerance or being excluded. So the journey to the gift of simplicity is to go within, to know thyself, to talk to yourself. This is where the Ashtanga Yoga really, really supported me, right? It made me ground into my body. I began my process of real self-reflection in relation to the divine. I remember when I was doing my yoga education with my teachers, I remember my teacher Harmony talking about Prakriti and the Atman, and I remember my brain just kind of like twisting in all sorts of different directions because I never explored any of this before. I was just in the middle of my Saturn return when this was all happening for me. And I remember when we were given our pranayama practices, and I started my pranayama practice every morning. About 2 weeks in, I showed up at the yoga studio early in the morning, as I practiced always early in the morning. And I remember I looked at Harmony and I said to her, I feel different. And she looked at me and said, you look different. And I was like, what do you mean? And she said, your eyes look clear. And that's what I felt through this going within, through this pranayama, through this breath, is that I began to know myself. I began to become intimate with my inner experience. And through that practice as well, I then found a safe place to explore this. And so in order to journey to the gift of simplicity, it's also really supportive if you have safe people to talk to and people who celebrate your wisdom and knowing. I remember my counselor, my very first counselor, she actually turns out she has the 4323 as well, just not in her conscious sun and earth, but in her north node and south node. And she always celebrated my wisdom and knowing. And that helped me exercise my voice. And then it spread to friends. And now I have friends who are wanting to hear what I have to share. And it's about sharing in the right timing. Through the breath work, through the embodiment work, I got into this knowing of understanding when the time was right to speak and when the time was right to sit. I also learned this very much when I was studying to be a therapist, a counseling therapist, right? Is that sometimes you just need to sit in silence and let someone come to the next thing they want to say or their own conclusion without speaking. And so it's an art because there's such a subtlety to it. And then when you do communicate, you communicate from your heart. And I think this is what happens when I record these videos is I take down the transcripts of these to see what I say. And sometimes I'm just like, these words are all jumbled. But from my understanding, from you who watch these, that you follow the message of what I am communicating. And that's because communication is words only make up something like 20% of how we communicate. And the rest is through the heart and the energy and the expression and the physiology. And so I really love that, right? Is that as long as you're speaking from your heart in right timing, you will be heard by your right people. And when we enter into this gift of simplicity, there is this clarity of mind. You become clear. Now, not all the time. Sometimes we still get fuddled up in our brains, and sometimes we get turned around and get complicated, but you can re-access that clarity and that simplicity through breath work, meditation, journaling, embodiment, going for a walk in nature, right? Being reminded of that and letting go of the need to find the answers or having a certainty about what that experience meant or what your emotions mean. Sometimes the more we can allow something to be and to flow, knowing that it's a part of you, but maybe you can just sense what it is versus like getting a certainty about it, that is where the simplicity comes, because then it's a knowing, and we experience less of this needing to explain why or how come, which comes from this world, the shadow side of complexity. Like, why do you feel that way? Well, can I just feel? Because the more we just allow ourselves to feel, the faster the feelings shift, and then it doesn't matter anymore. So I hope that was supportive for you. Thank you so much for watching. If you like this video, please like, share, subscribe, leave a comment. I love reading all of your comments. It means a lot to me when something lands and you share that to me. I really, really appreciate it. It makes my day. So thank you so much for being here with me.